Okay, everyone, let's start our second part. Let me record the session.
Recording in progress.
Okay, like I said earlier, the aim of this session really is about to show you how you can use what you have learned so far to understand research papers and how you can actually formulate some ideas mathematically using what you have learned. Now let's have a look at another algorithm we will focus in this module, simple linear regression. Learning outcomes. So by the end of this session, you should know how the least square method works, what the formal equation, normal equation is, how to use sklearn to do linear regression and understand the meaning of the outputs. Okay, so let's have a look at some terminologies here. Linear regression is a technique that statisticians use to describe the relationship between a dependent variable, or it's also called regression, and one or more independent variables. They are also called a predictor. Here is an example. In this figure, I have some plots, like you can see red circles, right? And each of them are drawn based on a pair of values. One is weight, one is length. These are new babies, female babies, height and weight, a small group of data. In this example, if we are given length, then the aim is to estimate the weight, then the length is the independent variable and the weight is the dependent variable. On the other hand, if the aim is to estimate the length given the weight, then the weight is the independent variable and the length is the dependent variable. Usually, if you are asked, oh, what can you see from a scatter plot? You can answer, say, for example, oh, if there's any positive correlation between these two features or not, or negative correlation, or there's no correlation at all. So positive correlation is like here, when one variable increases, the other also increases. See, when the weight increases and the height, the corresponding height or length, we call it length for female babies here, also increases from, for example, compare this point to here. The weight increases, height also increases. This is a positive correlation. So when you are giving a scatter plot, that is something, relationship you are looking for. Now, linear regression with one variable. In this session, we focus on linear regression with the one variable first and without noise. So this is called noise-free. In Unit 8, you will learn, after you learn a little bit more about probability and statistics, we will add one more term here. That term is free from, independent from variable here, but has a Gaussian distribution. So we will talk about it in Unit 8. But here, what we are looking for is we want to fit a linear line defined by here, this function. Yeah? So A0 is intercept as shown here, and A1 coefficient in front of the variable is the slope. One of the learning outcomes is ask you to understand how this least squares method works. So idea, we have already seen, we want to find a function defined by A0 and A1 so that this linear function is close to the output dependent variable value for training examples. And the least squares is the oldest method for fitting a model. It has this shape. Is it familiar to you? If you have already attended last week's Friday's lecture, we talk about gradient descent. We actually have already seen this before. So this is the target value. Target value. Here are predictions or estimates given by this function. The whole thing here is called sum of squared errors, right? So we have n data points, and we want to minimize the error, let the error as small as possible. And then we do gradient descent to find parameters, what is the best A0 and A1 here. And some of you may remember, I did ask a question, do we have other choice options for defining a suitable cost function? Apart from Q, that is, we have already shown you in the slide, other options can be Q2. Have a look at Q2. Similarly to Q1, to Q here, but it is not squared. It is the actual error. Okay, Q3 is absolute value, absolute error here. Why can't we use Q2 and Q3? The problem is Q2 here is that the errors are signed quantities. They are positive, negative, and the positive errors can cancel with negative errors. So that is the problem. With this one, Q3, the problem with this one is that the absolute value function is not differentiable, and thus the tools and the results are not available. What do I mean by not differentiable? So have a look at, for example, here. Remember, when we talk about functions, we talk about continuous, we talk about derivative, and we talk about, from on the very beginning, we talk about limit. For the limit, we talk about right-hand limit and left-hand limit. When the right-hand limit and the left-hand limit are equal, then the function is continuous. See, so here, this example for the absolute value, this is a continuous function because the left-hand limit and the right-hand limit, they are all equal to 0. Okay, so this is continuous. However, by definition, remember, by definition, how do we calculate derivative? Have a look at here. By definition, we need to calculate the change for the function over the change along the variable under this limit when the variable change approach 0 from right-hand side, from left-hand side. If they are equal, then we say this function is differentiable, or we can find a derivative for it. But now have a look at what happened to this absolute function. When we calculate, by definition, okay, when we calculate this right-hand limit is equal to 1. When we calculate the derivative for the left-hand limit, we got -1. So right and hand, they are not equal. That is why the absolute value function is not differentiable. If it is not differentiable, remember when we calculate maximum and minimum and with constraints, we need to calculate derivative. So that is why for this shape, I would say tools and results for differentiable those kind of functions won't be available for this one. That is why, okay, for most of people, when we consider cost function, people would like to use this one. This one is not perfect. The problem with this one is that errors are not weighted equally. Large errors are giving significantly more weight than smaller errors. Let's say, for example, if we have an error equal to 1, 1 is squared is still 1. But if when we have an error to 5, this one will be significantly weighted to 25. However, compare with these two, because we can use tools for differentiation and we can avoid the problem, cancel errors. So that is why this one is popular in machine learning or data mining area. We talk about why we use this one. Now, cost function, we minimize the error with respect to A0 and A1, and we want to find the proper A0 and A1. But this time is a optimization without constraint. Yeah. So how do we calculate it? Find the maximum and the minimum. Again, we need to calculate partial derivative and then set them to 0. For those, if you don't know how we can get here, I suggest you have a look at, watch the video recorded on last Friday for the lecture. We did talk about how to calculate the differentiation, partial derivative for these two. Okay, we may use different symbol, but it is the same thing for least square. Now, what I want to emphasize is just this A0. So from A0, have a look at here, A0. Here, okay? So I remember it is corresponding to last Friday's lecture. We have this A plus BX, and this A0 can be related to that A in the gradient descent algorithm when we talk about it. So look at here. If we set it to 0, what do we get? Here. We continue from here. We set it to 0. Because this is a constant, -1, we can cancel it from both sides. Okay? Now, just look at this part. And here is a sum. Sum from 1 to the number of, in this data set, we have n data points. So sum of y, the first term, this y is indexed by the number of data points. And then minus sum of next term here, A0. This A0 is a constant because it is not indexed by the data points here. Now, this sum goes to in front of the third term, minus here, minus. A1 again is a constant. We can take it in front of this sum, okay? Because here xi is indexed by the data points, here. Have a look at this term. Again, we write it down. We write it down here in the next line. And then here, because this A0 is a constant, if we do sum n times, that is what we get, n multiplied by A0. Minus this part, we copy to this line, similarly to here. Now, because here is equal to 0, we rearrange this line so that n multiplied by A0 are put in one side, and the other two terms are put in the other side of this equal sign. So have a look at it again. What is A0? A0, when we have this equation, if we divide both sides by n, both sides are divided by n, what do we get? A0 is in fact equal to, this is the sum of all y value. Imagine that baby, female newborn baby side. If we want to estimate length based on the weight, okay, so length will be the dependent variable. It is our y now here. And the x will be the weight, that is independent variable. So here, this term divided by n, that is the mean length over all available babies, the height. So here, that is, this term will be the mean value, mean weight over all baby data we have. So this is A0. Intercept, that is the target value, mean of target value, or mean of dependent variable, minus A1, that is the slope of that line, multiplied by, what is this? Independent, mean of independent variable value. So this is A0. How do we know what is this A1? A1 is a little bit complicated. I'm not going to cover it in this module. If you want to learn a little bit more or something more about simple linear regression, please have a look at this document, this one here. But what I want you to pay attention is, let's have a look at this A1. A1. This is our A1. Compare it with covariance equation here, or correlation here. What can you see? So A1 here, compare, let's see, just to compare with covariance. Okay, so here is again this I, they are the index for each data point. And then here, the bar on the top of X, this is the mean value. Here is the same mean value. So basically, numerator for both are the same, right? So what we can say about it is this coefficient A1 can reflect correlation between independent variable and dependent variable. So the sign positive or negative can tell us whether independent variable and the dependent variable are linearly positively correlated or negative correlated. This makes sense, right? Because A1 is the slope of a linear line, if you think about it. So, considering only one variable, we have X. Y is the target, dependent variable. That is the solution. In the tutorial, I think one question is about ask you to apply these equations to calculate the linear line for this one. Now, something very important for you to remember. When we perform simple linear regression, we get a line of best fit. The data points usually don't fall exactly on this regression equation line. They are scattered around. See, for example, here, what I mean is the data point here usually are not exactly staying on this line. So the distance, vertical distance between a data point to this line is called residue. Okay, so from this data point to here, these are called residue. So here, residue is defined as it is error. That is the true value, ground truth, minus the estimated value, predicted value. And the sum of residuals is always equal to 0. Okay. On the other hand, the sum of observed values equals to the sum of estimated values. So if we add up all together and then all predictions together, they are equal. Now, residual plots are very important for analyze a linear regression model. What does it mean? Have a look at here. Okay, this website about this topic is interesting and very useful. You may have a look at it. So, residual plot. What is a residual plot? For each data point, you can get predictions, and then you can calculate residuals for each data point. And then for each data point, you also have independent variable value, right? Then based on these two pairs, one pair of two values, then we can plot one point for each observation, okay, using its independent variable value against the residual value. And then you can generate a plot for all data points. If the residual plot looks like this, that is, if the points in the residual plot are randomly dispersed around the horizontal axis, a linear regression model is appropriate for the data. Otherwise, if you see any shape in the residual plot, it says the model you have already used is not good enough to fit your data. You need to consider a complex model involving non-linear features or non-linear model in the training. Okay, so residual plot is very useful tool for when you're using a simple linear regression model to analyze your data. Another thing, what is this? This is another different performance measurement. Okay, it is called coefficient of determination. Let's have a look at the definition for this. So yi, again, is the actual value. Okay, so again, we want to predict the baby's length, height, based on their weights. So height is the target value. Here we have predictions. When predictions are equal to the actual observations, we say we have a very good best fit or perfect fit. So this term is equal to 0. Then the whole thing here is equal to 0. That means the R2, we call the R to the power of 2, the coefficient of determination is equal to 1. On the other hand, if these predictions here are equal to the mean value, mean of target value here, then what do we have? This term, the whole thing is equal to 1. Then 1 minus 1 is equal to 0. That means, what does it mean? Tell us the independent variable won't give us any information for your linear training, because you don't need to get any information from that. All you get is prediction. It's just the target value from the existing data. You don't need to know the weights for each baby. All you need to know is the target value for the length for each baby and calculate the mean value. So it says, right, the independent variable is not useful for your training. So in that case, R2 is equal to 0. That means the model is really bad trained. So you need to think about a way to either use different features or you select different models. So as you can see, this R2 is a value in between 0 to 1. The bigger, the better, the value. So let me ask you one question now here. Think about it. How many ways you can think about if you use a linear regression model to train a model? How many different methods you can apply to tell how bad or how good your model is, the performance of your model? Basically, how many methods can you think about to report after you train a model? You can know your model is a good one or bad one, or how you can improve. How many methods can you think about it? I give you 5 seconds, think about it. Okay. In front of us, that is one method, right? That is R2, coefficient of determination. So we want this value as large as possible. And 1 gives us it is a perfect value. This is 1. What other method or performance measurement can you think about? What about to measure the mean squared error, sum of mean squared error, or rooted sum of mean squared error? Basically, it is a similar thing, but you want that value as small as possible. It won't fixed in a range, like here it's always between 0 to 1, but for mean square error, it is not a range. However, whenever possible, you want that value as small as possible. Any other method? What about correlation coefficients? You can compare correlation coefficients between, you can report that between these target value and the predictions. Okay. How about residual plot? When you do simple linear regression, residual plot is a must-have one. Okay. Now, so far we have already talked about just one single variable. Of course, you can have more than one variables, like here. Rather than consider, let's again, we predict length or height, giving weight. This time we also have age for each baby, So we have more variables. Now, that is the linear regression model. And the input here is not, it's a vector now. It's not one single variable anymore. We may have more than one. So in this case, we have D features, number of D features. But this I is an index for number of data points. So what I mean is here. Is here. Let's imagine we have a data matrix. We have D features, x1, x2, x3. I will explain here later. So we have D features, and then that I is the index for each row here, for each data matrix, data row here. Okay. Have a look at here. This is rather long. So can we have a concise way to rewrite it? That is to use sum. But be careful here, this sum, this J, starting with 0. Because here we have an intercept. And then ending at D, because we have D features. But what about A0? Here, A0. If we want to write it in this way, we must add one column for X, that is XI0. So that is why here, XI0, the whole column is equal to 1. It is a one column vector. Every values here is 1. Okay, so this is our original data matrix. We add one extra column here so that we have D plus 1 features now, but this is a dummy feature here. The whole column is equal to 1. this way, if we write it like sum for everything, we can further write it using what you have already learned, matrix, okay? Rather than write here to the square, power of the square, we can write it in this way. So Y here is the target column. And here predictions are given by, that is our data matrix multiplied by our coefficients here. Okay, data matrix, the size of data matrix, look at here, is n by d plus 1. And here, this A is a column vector. The size of it is how many rows do we have? We have d plus 1 multiplied by 1. So when we rewrite this into a matrix format, that is what we have. Rather than have square, we have transpose and the matrix itself. Okay. Because when we do multiplication for matrices, right, basically each one column to another, one row to another column, that is dot product. So everything can be read in a much concise way, much more simpler. This is residual sum of squares. That is the objective function we want to minimize with respect to the coefficient. Yeah. So how do we do this? Let me show you from here. A little bit more exercise today here. So here is residual sum of squares. Yeah. So we have transpose here. Because here is minor, we have the first term is transposed. The second term is a product here. Transpose, remember when we use transpose from here, that is rightmost first is transpose and then the left part transpose. So that is what we have here. And then multiply by this, the second term, write it down here. Now, similarly, like we do A plus B multiplied by A minus B or A plus B, we do that expansion, right? So how do we do this? The first term, Y transpose multiplied by Y, write it down here. This term, that is minus, multiplied by Y, write it down here. This term, multiplied by the second one, the second term, this term multiplied by the second one here, write it down as a third term in the new line here. Finally, this term multiplied by here, write it down here. Okay? We rewrite, have a look at here, this line, rewrite it. Before we rewrite it, have a look at here, what is this? What is this? Can we write it in this way? Yes, we can. Because when we do the transpose, we should write it down. This one first, that is corresponding to here. Second one, middle one, transpose to the transpose itself, it back to here. And then this one transpose again, that is the original one, right? So when we rewrite this part, can be written like this. So these two terms, they are equal. That is why in the next line, combine them together, we have 2 this term. That is why we have here. Okay? And then for the last term, we just copy it, write it down here. Now we are ready to do derivative, partial derivative from this cost function with respect to this coefficient vector. So what do we get? Because this is a partial derivative with respect to A, this term can be considered as a constant. So with constant, we get the 0. There's no change, right? The partial derivative. Look at here, the second term with respect to A here. So which one can be used? Do you remember? We can similarly consider all the other terms as constant. So all we need to do is just copy the constant here. And then for this one, do you remember which one we should use? In the first one. This one we can use, okay? A vector transpose multiplied by a symmetric matrix, and then by the vector itself, that is 2ax given back here. Just to consider here is an x square as a square, loosely speaking, okay? So for this one, that is finally what we get. So this is the whole thing xtx considered to be a matrix, a symmetric matrix. Now, if we write them together, what do we get? What happened here? What do we get? We go back to here. That is what we get. After we calculate partial derivative, we set it equal to 0. We cancel -2 at both sides, then that is what we get here. Okay, the aim is to calculate what is the A, the coefficient vector. How do we get it? That is the final result here. So how do we get it? I don't understand why I can't. Why can't I see? Yeah, here. Okay, now it's better. So when I write it down here, okay, I set it to 0 here. That is what I get. Yes, that is what I get. And to get this A, I want to cancel this term from the left-hand side. To cancel this one, I need to multiply by the inverse of this matrix. If I multiply inverse of this matrix, I need to multiply it from both sides. If I multiply by this from both sides, I write it then in front of all vectors. Yes, so now because this is inverse and multiplied by the matrix itself, we get identity matrix. So the left-hand side, we have A only. And now on the right-hand side, that is what we have. So this is the famous normal equation. So normal equation is used to calculate coefficients for linear regression model with multiple variables. I remember I saw this one as a question asked in the interview question for some companies. When they interview candidates, they say, one of the questions I remember is that, oh, can you write it down, the normal equation for me? So this is the normal equation. And consider that female baby data set, what do we have in X? We have weight as one column, and we have age as another column. That is our X. What is our Y? Y is the length, yeah, the dependent variable value. Now compare this with our A1. We got it for one single variable. Okay, loosely speaking, again, so we have squared here for one single variable. Here, as a matrix, okay, in matrix format, we have X transpose multiplied by X. Loosely speaking, consider it as a X squared. And the inverse, that is, we can put it, imagine put it into the denominator. And in the numerator here, that is the correlation between independent variable and dependent variable. Similarly to here, that is measure, is used to measure the correlation between our dependent variable and the independent variables. When we do linear regression. Similarly, like what you have already done for PCA, in PCA, you need to remove mean value from your data set first, right? At least. And quite often people not just remove mean, but also data divided by the standard deviation from each feature. For this one, we also need to feature scaling or normalization, we call it. So that is remove mean value and also divide each column is divided by its standard deviation. Or like what we have already seen last week in Unit 5 when we talk about that example for gradient descent algorithm, we normalize data so that each column is between 0 to 1. Okay, so now the really last part about linear regression in sklearn. How do you use it? Before we started, I just want to emphasize what have we discussed today. For linear regression model, we discussed how to formulate it using least square method with one single variable, right? And how to calculate that 0. We didn't calculate A1, but we explained the meaning and compare it with covariance matrix, the shape of it. Yeah? And then we discussed residue. That is very important. The sum of residues doesn't matter which data set you have been given. It should be equal to 0. If you calculate it after you train the model and the residue, the sum of residues is not equal to 0, then there's something happened. You need to check. And how many ways, how many different performance measurements you can use to help you to understand whether the model is trained properly. You can use, we discussed, you can use coefficient of determination. The value, it should be 0 to 1. And how many other methods have we discussed? Residue plots, correlation coefficients, and mean squared error. And we discussed linear regression with multiple variables. Remember that famous equation that is called normal equation. If you use this one, okay, it can give you the answer for all the coefficients in front of the variables, each variables. It is given in a vector. Now, let's have a look at the code together. If you have chance to practice them in Unit Practical 5. To call for a linear regression model from sklearn, you need to import linear model and then the class linear regression. So let's have a look at what we can learn from this code. Sorry. So line 3 here, what does it do here? It calls for NumPy to generate a data matrix. Can you see? How many data points are there? 4 data points, 2 columns, X and Y, X1 and X2, 2 columns. And what are the target value? Target value actually is defined here. It is a linear regression target value. Okay, and Y, the corresponding target value, is defined by here. Yes? Now, run a linear regression model and then feed on X data, that is the input, and X inputs, independent variables, yes, regressor, and Y is dependent variable, target value. What is this score return to us? that is returns the coefficient of determination. Because the data is tested on itself, so we got a perfect fit is 1. Now to get what is the A0 and A1, so we got here, if you want to see the output, that is the trained model REG regression, REG, dot the method here, coefficient and underscore here. It will return to you what is the trained coefficients for this model. So it is 1 and 2. That is exactly defined here. This is a toy example just to show you how to call this function to train a linear model on the data. Inputs, independent variable, dependent variable. And then how you check what are the outputs, coefficients. If you call for, you should call coefficient underscore. And the intercept is called for, called by this model, train model dot intercept underscore. If you want to get the prediction for a new data point, you call for this model with a method predict. That is the new output. So the point here, I want you, before we finish today, I want you to understand how to explain the outputs from the code. For example here, I give you the output, a trained model from sklearn. Now, listen carefully my question. Tell me, what is the fitted linear line for this model? Okay, you can keep 2 decimal places when you write the equation for that regression line. So the answer, the question you need to think about first is that how many features are there in this task? Do you know how to write it? Anyone can give me some answers from chat box? Try to open this chat box. Do you know how to write it? I want you, this is the output I gave you. I want you to write the linear regression line. How many features are there? So how do you write it? Do you have your pen, notebook? So we have a function f, and inside we have x. X is a data matrix. And then equal to, we should have intercept. Intercept is here, it's given by, shown here. So 2 decimal places. So let's see, 22.47. And then now, next step, we should have plus A1, X1 plus A2, X2 to how many features in total? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 features. So we should have plus to the A13, X13. And each of these A1 corresponding to here, A2, A3, to A13. If this is something asked you are asked during the test, you are giving some outputs, you are asked to write down the linear regression line. You should write something like here, okay? And actually, when you read research paper, let me write it more formally. Quite often, you will see it like this. X is your data, and then colon, semicolon, A. That is the parameter. Use semicolon to distinguish data from parameters. Now, A0 plus A1, X1 plus A2, X2. I'm not going to write all, but you should, okay? A13, X13. equal to, that is what we said, right? So what is the first A1? A1 is equal to here, minus 5.36. So we write it down here. Minus, sorry, I forgot. Minus 5.37. Yep. 5.37. And then you should be able to do all by yourself. Check the corresponding coefficient and then write it down. That is the final result. When you are giving, I say, okay, now after you got this equation, I say, now I give you a new data point which is not involved in the training set. The new data point is given by, say, x new equal to, I made it up, 2407, and then 13 values. What would be the prediction for this new point? Then you can write it down, right? 27 minus multiplied by what is new x1, that is 1, plus next A2, you need to check it out, what is A2, multiplied by 2. That is how you get the results, the 4 predictions. Now, which method has been used to calculate coefficients? Here, if you check, okay, it says ordinary least squares linear regression. Basically, it says, okay, the normal equation is used to calculate coefficients matrix. What if, remember here, this one, if we have a large data set, then the inverse here, you see the inverse, is not that easy to be calculated even with a very powerful computer. Then we may have problem. Either it's very slow or numerically there are some errors. This inverse cannot be calculated smoothly. Then what do we do? The normal equation won't work. Then what do we do? Remember, that is why last week you have already learned gradient-based optimization, gradient descent algorithm. Okay, so if you want to use for a very large data set, if you want to, you need to use gradient descent method rather than use normal equation to calculate coefficients, then you should call for, again, import linear model. But this time, you need to call for a different class, that is SGD regressor, not linear regressor anymore. This SGD denotes stochastic gradient descent regressor. The optimization method is stochastic gradient descent method. There are many parameters you, as the user, need to preset before you use them. So have a look at it on your own to understand the meaning of it. Okay. I'm not, for this one, I want to say is, I think sklearn actually has already solved the problem. You don't need to preset for gradient descent. You don't need, just for this one, you don't need to preset the base value, initial value. It seems like they have already did it in a built-in function somehow. Many packages, as I have known, they actually preset initial values from a Gaussian distribution with a very small value. So just for this one, I want to draw your attention. Otherwise, you may come to ask, oh, you mentioned last week we need to preset some base value, but where can I set it? For this one, you don't need. But you do need to set learning rate. Okay, so which one is the learning rate? And remember last week when I talked about the learning rate, I said you can also keep it either as a constant or make it change over the iterations. So if you have a look at this link, it will give you some ideas how to do that. Finally, remember, we talk about residual plots, and it will tell us whether the model is good, a linear model is good for your data or not. When we see some special shape, it tells us maybe, oh, the data has some nonlinear thing in it. We need to use a nonlinear, either nonlinear features or nonlinear model to fit data. We are not going to talk about nonlinear data. Before we finish today, we talk about how we can actually use nonlinear feature. So look at here. This part is simple linear regression model, right? With one single variable. Now here, to capture the nonlinear nature in the data, you can simply add a new feature. This feature is the original feature to the power of 2. Using this way, we can somehow help to capture the nonlinear nature in the data set. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but you need to try. Have a look at the example here. It just tells us, okay, how to generate nonlinear polynomial features. Python function from sklearn you can call for is called polynomial feature. Be careful with the capital letter here, P, and the capital letter F here. Okay, now have a look at here. What does it mean? Sorry, what does it mean here? When I call for here, I have a data matrix, 2 columns, x1 and x2. Okay, now if I want to generate polynomial features to the power of 2, what does it mean? It means, okay, this is my dummy column. Remember to, when I talk about data matrix here, I have a column so that here I can multiply it with a 0. Okay, so this is one column. Back to here. After I run these polynomial features to the power of 2, have a look at, apart from here, this is my first feature corresponding to here, first feature, original one. Second feature from the original data set. Now, to the power of 2 of the first feature, right? So 0 to the power of 2, 0, 2 to the power of 2 is 4, 4 to the power of 2 is 16. Next column, that is the second column, original feature to the power of 2, right? That is, the last column here is to the power of 2 for this one. So what is this? This is called interaction between the 2 features. So that is the product of 2 features. The first row is 0 here. The second row, product of second row is 6, that is here. And then is 20 is here. So when you run polynomial feature to the power of 2, that is, it returns to you. And then you can decide which columns you would like to use. Maybe you only want to use interaction term only, then you set it to true. So these are your features. The first column, that is dummy column, and then the first original features, and then only interaction. This column is included in your data set. Okay, this is a different way to not, to train a nonlinear method, but somehow that is a tool you can use, polynomial feature, to capture some nonlinear nature in the data set by generating some polynomial terms in a new feature in the data set. Before we finish, the last question I want to ask you, very important. I have two codes here. We talk about feature scaling, normalization. I have two codes, two segments here. My question is, have a look at it and then answer which one is the correct one you should use. On this Friday, I will talk about a little bit more about how do we split our data set. If you are giving a data set, you need to split the data set into two parts, training part and the test part. And then we do normalization. So on the left-hand side here, we do normalization. Have a look at here. We call fit and transform in one line for the test set, fit and transform. However, for the right-hand side here, look at the difference. The difference is that I use fit and transform separately. Fit is used for the training set only, the training set. And transform is used for both training and the test set. What's the difference between these two? In your coursework and in your data analysis, which one you should use? Okay, the answer is you should always use here, the right-hand side. The reason is that when we normalize a data set, okay, we always use mean, standard deviation, maximum value, minimum value, those values from your training set. Use that to normalize your training set and also your test set. Okay, the